Hello, my name's Andrew Baum and I'm delighted to be here speaking to the followers of PropTech LATAM Summit. I'm going to talk to you about the future of real estate and the impact of technology and innovation on the real estate market. I'm a professor of practice at the Saïd Business School, the University of Oxford, and I'm also a businessman running a property investment advisory business. The bad news for everybody is that change is coming. We're going to see flying cars, we're going to see drone deliveries, we're going to see robots, we're going to see bendy buildings, and the world is going to change. But it's well overdue. In the property market, things haven't changed very much for 100 years. We see this picture that the construction technology of the 1830s is very similar to the construction technology of today, whereas in other industries like medicine, advances have been huge. So it's well overdue for technology to take a big impact or make a big impact on the real estate market and industry. So for the last 3 years we've been researching as a team into the impact of technology on the property market, and we produced a report called PropTech 3.0, the future of real estate in 2017, from which some of this is taken, and new research that we've been doing recently will also be referred to. Our view is that the first PropTech wave happened in the US and in many of the Western markets at the end of the 1990s, when email and internet started to take hold. And rapid rise in the use of the internet was in 1997, 1998. That led inevitably to a dot-com boom, and equally inevitably to a dot-com crash in about 2001, 2002. There are very few survivors from that period, PropTech businesses, but we did see businesses like CoStar, data groups, and we saw the first house sale portals like Zillow and Trulia in the US, and Zoopla and Rightmove in the UK. And in most countries, house sales became online portals, or that was the first way of marketing a building. We think the second wave of PropTech began in 2008, and we think it has just about peaked now. We think that wave is in some decline in terms of the number of businesses, but the amount of money being applied is very strong indeed. And PropTech 3.0 is the very next wave, which is round the corner, and we'll do our best to predict what that's going to be. In 2005 to 2008, you might remember that nobody was very interested in technology. We were all buying buildings, borrowing money, making as much money as we could from leveraged real estate, and that led to the global financial crisis. But around the same time, Apple had invented the iPhone, and the App Store was about to be launched. And in 2008, the coincidence of the App Store being launched by Apple, the collapse of the global financial system following the boom in property markets, and also the first year in which the majority of people were living in urban centres, all coincided. And we end up with an interesting prospect that we have billions of rooms in the world, billions of people in the world, and now a way of connecting them together through an app. And that led to Airbnb, a real PropTech unicorn, and many other imitators. And the result has been that PropTech funding has been rising by over 60% a year for the last 5 years, and it probably peaked in around 2017 in terms of the number of companies. So we had a PropTech 2.0 explosion, many brands, Airbnb, WeWork, and many others that have created a lot of excitement in the world of technology and real estate. However, PropTech 1.0, which peaked in the year 2000, has been followed by this much bigger wave, PropTech 2.0, and that looked, in terms of the number of businesses being created, that looks like that peaked in 2015-16. And the reason it peaked is because intelligent people collecting information know that many of these untried areas are now being invested in, and so there aren't as many garage startups. Now what we're seeing is more money being applied to mature businesses, and we're going to see more consolidation in the industry. Now what is the industry? We think there are four waves of PropTech that we should look at. The first one is actually outside the property industry. The world of what we call exogenous technology is going to affect the way cities work and the way buildings work in a way which is going to be completely unaffected by any real estate professionals. And it's to do with driverless cars, it's to do with flying cars, drone deliveries, changes in transportation and the way that the world of big tech works. And that's going to affect the way cities operate. In addition to that though, and working within the real estate industry, we think there are three things going on. Coming out of construction technology, there is a smart building movement. And that we call that the first PropTech sector, and it's to do with the design and management of buildings. The second wave is to do with the shared economy. So outside real estate, we're aware of Uber, Zipcar, organizations which are sharing capital assets, and that's bleeding into the property market. And the shared use of space is characterized by Airbnb and WeWork and other co-working businesses. And then the third area of PropTech is coming from the Fintech industry. The Fintech industry is several years ahead of the PropTech industry, but there's a real estate Fintech movement going on, which is to do with the ownership of assets, the trading of real estate assets. So we have these four waves. We've got exogenous big tech affecting the way cities work. We've got construction tech working on smart building technology. We've got the shared economy driving the use of space, and we've got real estate fintech driving transactions. And now, as a result, according to the Unisu database, there are more than 6,000 PropTech businesses registered on their database in nearly 100 different countries. And those firms focus on smart buildings, shared economy, and fintech. And actually, you'll see that there are more fintech firms than there are smart building firms or shared economy firms. The reason for that is intriguing. It's to do with the fact that entrepreneurs see the capital transaction in real estate as the honeypot, the place where all the money is thrown off, all the money is made. And they're making a bit of a mistake because real estate transactions don't happen very often. And unless prop technology can create much more velocity in real estate trading, then there is overinvestment going on in real estate fintech. The majority of the money being invested in the Western markets is focused on residential property, but a lot also on the office market, with a very small amount focused on retail, which has become one of the victims of the PropTech revolution, as we'll talk in a minute. And some countries are particularly overinvested in technology. The UK, for example, has 750 PropTech companies, and that's many, many more than would be expected for a country of that size, whereas other countries like Japan just aren't participating in this with any particular weight. And the technologies that are being applied range from the very simple web-delivered, phone-ready apps, which many traditional property professionals will not use, driverless cars, autonomous vehicles, drones and flying cars, the whole transportation world, which is affecting the way cities operate. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, big data, very big, trendy words to use, but very, very important in this world of PropTech. Robotics and cyborgs, where some people are predicting that the average robot will be as intelligent as the average human being within 15 years, and that will place some challenges on the way human beings operate and the world of work. We are already seeing virtual reality, augmented reality, CAD, and that's useful for looking at buildings, showing off buildings. And one of the big questions, blockchain or distributed ledger technology and its use in collecting and storing data. And whether that gets replaced by quantum computing before it becomes established is an interesting question. There is a world of sensors and controls, so smart building technology is using heat sensors, heat controls, light controls, and sensors that measure the productivity of space so that inefficient meeting rooms, for example, can be monitored. And then finally, GPS, GIS and satellites help people record data that would hitherto have been very, very difficult to measure, so that it is now possible, for example, to measure the view from a building using GPS and GIS, when previously that was not something that could easily be quantified. And a lot of businesses will call themselves AI businesses. AI is the big thing, this slide says, because AI is the most commonly referred to technology that PropTech companies say they use. And I'm skeptical about that. I don't think many businesses are really using AI. They're using data and they're using computing power to analyze data, but it's a bit of a watchword rather than it's a bit of a fashionable thing to say. AI is going to be very important, however. Now, if we look at these three sections of smart buildings, shared economy, real estate, fintech, the smart building movement is just a good thing. It's something that had to happen. We need buildings to be energy efficient. We need them to be efficient generally in their use of space. And it's a good thing for the world that we have technology that is enabling that to happen. So the Internet of Things, building information management systems, all of these things will continue to be invested in, mostly by big engineering companies like Siemens, Honeywell, and others who will need to make significant capital investment in these technologies. We all want to see smart cities, but that's a long, long way away because cities just don't have the budgets to prepare the infrastructure in a technologically enabled way. The second movement, the shared economy movement, we've seen a big move away from traditional office space, for example, to co-working space led by WeWork, the best known brand. I'm in a building in Santiago right now. Right next door is a massive skyscraper with a WeWork brand on the top of it just being fitted out. And it's a sign of the way the world is moving. There is more and more co-working space, something like twice the take-up of most office markets in co-working space rather than traditional leases, and WeWork is now the biggest tenant of office space in London. And this is reflecting a demand for space as a service. Real estate fintech. The two big things that are happening in real estate fintech are, number one, people trying to speed up the transaction process. And the idea of the property passport, digital data being attached to buildings to speed up the property transaction process, is one thing that we will see more and more, particularly for new buildings, where digital data will be available to be transferred with the building. However, the big problem with property transactions is that the buyer has to be responsible for due diligence. The term in Latin is caveat emptor, the buyer has to beware. So it's a pipe dream to believe that people will rapidly buy buildings without due diligence unless we develop an insurance product. The alternative is that we do eventually slice buildings into small pieces and people trust the promoter of any scheme that sells units in buildings. And that's the argument about tokenization that is building, and people like to attach tokenization to distributed ledger technology as a way of making this market efficient. That's one of the big unknowns for the next few years. We're already seeing data being applied in the portal market for house purchases. We might see house portals affecting transactions within the next few years. And we are already seeing automated valuation models. So it is very likely that most banks lending mortgages against real estate, against residential real estate, will use automated valuation models and not human beings. There's been a well-known AVM in use in the UK for at least 10 years. Most banks use that. It's accurate for about 90% of all houses, and that's good enough when you're lending 70% against the purchase price. We've also seen that lead to open door and nested, WeBuyAnyHouse.com, so that there's automated rapid purchase of properties at discounts to market value. And then we're seeing people talk about applying AI to commercial property valuations, which is a much more difficult thing to imagine. And I'm somewhat skeptical about the speed with which AVMs will be applied to non-residential property. South America is not lagging behind. In the outperformers, in terms of the number of companies per GDP dollar, Brazil, Chile and Mexico are all active in the PropTech world, more active than you'd expect. And so South America is taking part, Latin America is taking part in this PropTech wave. And I heard today of regional regional companies which will be producing very valuable businesses that no doubt will be acquired at some point in the future, but are going to participate in this PropTech wave. So those outperformers will inevitably, they're going to be looked at by US businesses. One of the biggest outperformers, the US, clearly is the real motor behind the PropTech wave, and you can expect San Francisco to be the source of lots of money being used to acquire any successful businesses. Unfortunately, you can also expect a lot of these businesses to fail, and a lot more will fail than survive. One easy conclusion to draw is that data availability is going to increase massively. Some people call data the new oil, the new oxygen. We're seeing trading platforms throwing off data. So we've got crowdfunding platforms which are throwing off data about buildings. We've got the Internet of Things throwing off data about building components. We have location data, businesses like Guyana in London, which are measuring footfall for any location based on mobile phone signals. We've got lease extraction information systems being used to take data from various documents and put them into an intelligent format. We've got more complexity. We've got shorter leases. We've got co-working space, which is much more vibrant in the way it produces data. And we may end up with tokenization and fractionalization of real estate assets. We're also getting lots of social property media sites. So we're seeing the house portals, and don't be surprised if eventually we see Facebook for houses, which will tell stories about your properties. The property passport is coming. The property passport is going to be an openly accessible single pool of standardized up-to-date property data, and it's going to be used in the transfer of assets. It relies heavily on digitalization, but it will require some sort of insurance product to make it work quickly. More interestingly, perhaps, the drivers of value itself are going to change. So technology has already started to impact on real estate values. And for a real estate person, rather than a tech person, this is the most obvious impact of tech and innovation. What we've seen first is the slow death of retailing, and the impact of Amazon and online retailing on physical retail space has been nothing short of alarming, particularly in the US and in other European markets. The UK has 23% penetration of online sales. The US is well behind that, but the US has 5 times more retail space per capita than the UK, and so it's being hammered in the destruction of the demand for retail space. But alongside the dying property types, we've seen a boom in logistics, which I suspect is a short-lived boom, while we build enough distribution warehouses, but that will not be a long boom. We'll then see new property types that will become very popular. So things like data centers, even rooftops. The value of a rooftop is now much greater, and you can expect to see people controlling rooftops for drone deliveries, for flying cars, and so on. The office market is probably where the most effort will be made to understand a changing world. And instead of having a single tenanted building on a long lease where the tenant looks after the building, we're going to see a move to space as a service led by the co-working brands. And we're going to see smarter buildings, energy efficient, connected, productive office buildings. And finally, in the residential market, we're going to see new formats. We're going to see co-living spaces, and we're going to see co-ownership. Some countries have got tremendous housing shortages. The way to solve that is going to be co-ownership plans to help people afford to buy their own places. So we've already seen the retail market being very, very damaged by online retailing, with industrial having the opposite effect and booming in price. If you look at the ULI Emerging Trends Survey at the end of 2018, it was very interesting that all of the popular property types are not affected severely by technology. In fact, they are resistant to the impact of technology, so co-living, or they are going to benefit from technology, data centers, retirement living, logistics, service offices. So these sectors are either immune to technology or they're going to be supported by it. The sectors at the bottom of the preference list, shopping centres, retail parks, these are the sectors that are going to be most badly damaged. and out-of-town offices, for example, where the driverless car will drive people into town centres and transport hubs and away from out-of-town business parks. So getting towards the end of this, the winners and losers in this game, there's plenty of hype, but there's plenty of real impact as well. The overhyped sectors are cryptocurrencies and ICOs. We went through a phase about a year ago where people were planning to create property cryptocurrencies and attach those to buildings. I think that wave is something that will disappear pretty quickly. But we are seeing real estate, fintech, syndication, tokenization as something which is going to be pushed. The understated sectors, the ones which will be here for a long time, smart building technology and the digitalization of data, they're the two guaranteed winners from this wave. And the unknowns really are to do with blockchain or distributed ledger technology and this move to tokenization. The test of whether you have a business which will succeed or whether you have a business which needs to be invested in is whether there's a problem to solve. And I'd like to throw at you 3 problems that need solving. Number 1, are transaction processes efficient and trusted? If somebody comes up with technology which produces rapid but trusted transaction processes, then they will succeed. Second question, are buildings energy efficient and productive for occupiers? If the answer to that is yes, then you're going to win. And if the answer is no, then you need to either partner with somebody that can do that for you, or you need to understand a completely different way of dealing with your customer. And thirdly, are building owners providing a good service? Space is a service. Space is not something which is bought in a long lease. It's provided by expert operators. An intriguing thing for Latin America is whether developing markets can leapfrog the developed markets. And the best examples of that are the use of phone currencies in Kenya, for example, where a lack of confidence in the traditional financial system has led to tremendous innovation in making payments online. And we can already see that markets that don't have very well established deep banking systems are putting more effort into creativity and innovation in the financial system. So the analogy for that is that distributed ledger technology might take a lot more grip on markets where people don't trust their land registry systems and their government processes. So the good news for everybody is that a lot of change is coming, and there will be lots of winners, there'll be lots of losers, but the great thing is it's going to be different and it's going to be exciting. Thank you.